At the end of part one of this story, I was sitting in the back of a police car, while the police inspector was inside Cathy's house, checking to see if she was okay, checking to see if I had raped her. It seemed like an age, but the inspector finally came out of the house and got back into the car. "Girl's all right," he said. "She didn't hear a scream either, so looks like you're free to go." I can assure you that I breathed a very audible sigh of relief. But the inspector was really irritated. Fortunately not with me. That damn drunk probably cooked up this whole cockamamie story just so he could get a ride back into town. Come to think of it, that wasn't a bad idea. I wouldn't have minded a ride back into a town myself. But it was not to be. We went straight back to the churchyard where they had originally picked me up, and they let me out. But the atmosphere there seemed to be even more tense. There were about 10 cars now, and about 30 policemen, and the drunk, still probably hoping for a ride back into town. The inspector gathered the police around him, and I thought he was going to defuse the situation by debunking the drunk's story and telling them that no one else had heard a scream. But then I heard it, a blood-curdling, high-pitched scream. It came from the cemetery. We all momentarily froze, and then everybody ran. 30 policemen and the inspector ran directly into the cemetery towards the scream. The drunk and I also ran, but in the opposite direction. I left him way behind and continued running until I had no breath, no energy, nor any adrenaline left. And then, calmed, I made my way back to the apartment. Next day I debated what I should do, and I finally decided, and it was one of the most difficult decisions that I have ever made, before or since, that I needed to go and apologize to Cathy's parents. I first called the police to see if I could get any additional explanation of the events at the cemetery, but, strangely, the police denied that anything had happened at all. So that afternoon I went to see Cathy's parents. I rang the bell, and Cathy herself answered the door. She looked at me with absolute horror and quickly turned and bolted up the stairs. "Who is it, Cathy?" I heard someone ask. "Who is it?" I just stood there at the open door. Then the old woman who I'd seen the previous night appeared. "Yes," she asked. "Can I help you?" I explained that I was the man who had been with Cathy the previous night, and there was a look of horror, this time mingled with anger, came on her face. "Thomas! Thomas, you better come here!" she called. It's him!" That little sentence seems to be defining my life. And Thomas appeared, and I said I had come round to apologize, and I told them that my relationship with Cathy was perfectly innocent. That seemed to placate them somewhat, and they asked me in, but I knew that I was still in deep trouble when I was not asked if I would like a cup of tea. I told them everything that I knew, although I did not tell them that I had also heard the scream. When I finished, I asked if I could see Cathy and explained to her what had happened. "I don't want you ever seeing my cat again," the father said gruffly. I told him that I fully understood his decision and would abide by his wishes, but again asked if, just for a few minutes, I could see Cathy and to apologize directly to her. Cathy's mother said, "Well, I suppose it'll do no harm in that. Just a few minutes, mind you, in the front yard where we can keep an eye on you." So I had one last opportunity to talk to Cathy. I told her about the mass of police and the police cars at the junction of the path and the main road, and about the drunk's claims to have heard a scream, and about my interrogation. I also told her that I was intensely relieved that she supported my account. I did not tell her that I had also heard the scream when we went back to the churchyard. No point in telling her that. Wouldn't have helped the situation any, and could probably have scared her even more. Cathy then told me what had happened at her house. When the police inspector arrived, Cathy's parents had let him in, and he insisted on seeing Cathy. So Cathy's mother called upstairs, but succeeded only in waking up one of the younger sisters who shared a room with Cathy. Cathy told me that she must have been fast asleep under the covers, as the younger sister did not see her, and began screaming, "Cathy's been murdered! Cathy's been murdered! Cathy's been murdered!" The resulting bedlam woke up Cathy, who went downstairs to talk to the inspector. Finally, everything was cleared up. Cathy and the girls went back to bed, but her parents stayed up, discussing their wayward daughter. Then at 3 o'clock in the morning, they went to talk to the priest at a local Catholic church. And one result was that Cathy was never ever to see me again. So our brief talk finished, Cathy went back into the house. She stopped in the doorway for a moment and turned. I swear there was a tear forming in the corner of one of her eyes. I know there was one in mine. And then she was gone. Several days later there was a brief article in the local paper. The police reported that they had recaptured an inmate who had escaped the previous Saturday from the State Mental Institute for the Criminally Insane. He had been recaptured in the old cemetery at Llandaff Cathedral. The police noted that they had searched the area several times, but the escapee had initially eluded them. The police apologized for not releasing the information earlier, stating that they had not wanted to unduly alarm the public. I briefly thought about telling Cathy and her family about the article, but then, I think wisely, I decided not to. They had been alarmed enough.